I've been meaning to change the battery on my DX7 for quite a while. The problem is, to change the battery on the DX7 you've got to get your soldering iron out, because the battery is connected to the board. So the tags are soldered to the battery, and then those tags have to be then soldered onto the master board inside the machine. So what I've decided to do is, not only am I going to upgrade the battery, put a new battery in, I'm also going to take the opportunity to actually put a different battery holder into the DX7 for future battery upgrades. So what that means is, I'm basically going to take the old soldered tagged battery out. I'm going to put 2 wires in the board, and then I'm going to put a new battery holder actually into the DX7, and then a new battery which will be a standard CR2032 battery. So this is how we go about putting a new battery in one of these. So the first thing to do when you're taking the DX7 to pieces is undo the screws. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 of them. So I'm going to go on and undo those. Okay, one thing you will note when you're taking the keyboard to pieces is that the screws come in 2 different sizes. So there's one that's that size, and there's another that's that size, and they both have different thread types. So as you can see, I've arranged them in a triangle that matches the positions on the keyboard as they came out, so that will help when they go back. Okay, so the next job is to lift the cover. So we do that really gently. So. And we put that to one side, like that. So now we're in the inner workings of the DX7. Now, the battery is located on this board here. So we are going to undo that board. And the way to get to that board is we need to take this plate off here and move the board this way. So in order to do that, what we need to do is we need to undo this screw, this screw, this screw, and we also need to undo this screw, this screw, this screw, this screw, this. So it's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws on the back and 3 screws in the centre. So next set of screws to undo. Okay, so the board is now loose. As you can feel, still connected to various bits and bobs. So what we now need to do is it's connected down here somewhere. Yes, we need to loosen that, which I think it might be these 2 screws here. As you can see, once you've done that, the board itself becomes loose, but don't pull it because there are other wires connected to it. So now what we need to do is just disconnect the keyboard. And you'll find that there are 2 ribbon connectors. One's there and one is there. They need to be disconnected before you can lift this board out and turn it over, and there is the battery for all its glory. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get that battery off the board. We need the soldering iron for that. Okay, so sweating the battery out is a bit of a pain. So what you really need is one of these, which is a solder sucker, a soldering iron, one of these. It doesn't need to be as fancy as my one, whereas my one is saying that this is at 400 degrees, which should melt the solder quite quickly. So, what you do very simply is you touch contact places, wait for the solder to solidify, and then suck it out. And then the next thing you need to do is use a pair of long nose pliers and just grab hold of the battery. When the solder, just pull battery out without putting any leverage on the board. There you go, one battery out. Now, what's really interesting about this is I'll just bring it up to camera. This is the reason why Yamaha batteries are such a pain in the arse to replace. So, I'm going to replace this with a new battery. Now, sometimes you have to be very, very careful, and you just have to drill the hole out. So that's what I'm doing now. Just like that. So this is the point where it's good to have a can of compressed air. Just to make sure any filings haven't settled inside the keyboard. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put the battery holder in, but we're actually going to extend it, so I'm going to cut this wire down, solder this wire to the board. So there's the wire, and what we need to do with this is we need to feed it through in the right way. So the positive is this side, like so, and the negative is this side, just like that. And I've just bent the two wires on the other side just to hold them flat for the moment. Now what I will do is just make that a little bit proud, and then I will zap it with solder. things with new wire is it absorbs the solder. So you just have to make sure the solder is adhering to the board, not just the wire. It's a bit too much there. You can see it hasn't made a joint there. It hasn't made a joint. So a bit like that's made a joint. On negative I can do that, and I can do the same on the positive. Just like that. And we now have two wires soldered to the board, and at this point we can think about putting the board back into place. So the same way as we took this off, we need to put the things back on in reverse order. So we first of all reconnect the ribbons, like so. And then we start putting screws back in. Job is now I've got the wires, so I've now connected up the battery holder, and what I'm going to do is hold the battery, put the battery holder in a pair of pliers, like so, just so it holds it steady. Like that. And then I'm just going to solder the wires onto the holder. Just like that. I'll just trim the excess off. Like so. And then we have new battery holder ready to go. So next job is to fit a new battery. So like most of these devices, this takes a CR2032. So I have a new battery, put the new battery in. bugger. Just like that. So it's a bit awkward, but it actually goes in the wrong way around, if that makes any sense, because the negative is the underside and the positive is the top side and the sides. So therefore this side piece is always positive and that bottom piece is always negative. Right, so the keyboard has power. Now the next question is, how do I stop my battery knocking into any of the other boards? And that's done quite simply. And the way I would do that is, if you've got an old cable tie, like such, what you can do is loop the battery holder around and then around this set of wires here. Just fix the battery in place, so it's just free floating in that void, like so. Okay, so that's not going to go anywhere, and that's the upgrade. So the next job now is to put the whole thing back together, and you do that in reverse order, starting with the lid. However, what I would do while I've just got this off is just have a quick zip round for any areas where potentially there may be any fluff on the contacts. So I've just whizzed it up and down the keyboard there. Okay. And that's it. Right. Time to put it back together. Right, so we've now got the top sliding on. Goes, slots in. So there's 4 locator lugs on the keyboard, two at each end, and when you run this over, it locates, so it's nice and solid, and then you can start putting the screws in. So the way I always do this is I always start at opposing corners, like so. And I work my way around the keyboard in a counterclockwise direction from each corner, just putting the screws in finger tight. I find if you do it with your fingers, make sure they correctly locate into the holes, just like that, and therefore you know you're not going to get a cross thread. Just like that. Right, I'll carry on doing this. I won't bore you with this bit of the video. So I've plugged it in, and as you can see, if it's reading okay on the screen there, let's see if I can pull that up a bit. Not really very much, but it's reading gobbledygook. So we need to reload from memory. So pop a memory cartridge in, single edit, 14, 14, 14, 14, there are. Memory protect, use the cursor keys to go to internal and switch internal off. Okay, so now it's ready to accept from the cartridge, so we go back to single edit and we go to the cartridge, which is 15, and we say we're going to load to bank 2, which is what I'm on. Select the load and then select yes. And we're going to say we're going to accept that. And it's now loading. Wonderful. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to go back out of this. I'll go back to edit. 15. I'm going to change the bank down to bank 1. 15 again. That's what I want to do. Single bank 1. All loaded and ready to go.